So Chris, thank you very much for accepting to answer a few questions. Please introduce yourself in a few words.
Chris Flavin, I'm President Emeritus of Worldwatch Institute.
Okay. How many ASEFs have you attended?
This is my first ASEF.
Oh, really? So what do you think about it?
I'm actually very impressed. It's really an amazing sort of community of people now that's come together that that really understands the issues in detail and is committed to change. So I think it's really something that is maybe a model even for other parts of the world.
Thank you. Anything that attracted your attention at this event? Any solution? Any idea?
There actually were a number of things, sort of mainly related to the smaller scale distributed energy, and a sense that, there really is an opportunity there to be had. And I guess I hadn't really quite realized the sort of combination of rich resources with the relatively high energy prices in Asia. We work a lot in Latin America, and one of the big challenges in many Latin American countries is just the energy prices are relatively low, a lot of cheap hydropower mainly, and so that makes more difficult economic competition for the new renewables. Whereas in many Asian countries, you're really competing against either oil, in diesel generation and off-grid areas, or in many cases you're competing against new coal plants or new LNG plants, both of which are really quite expensive. So I think the opportunity and the promise of change, really dramatic change over the next several years, is a very real one.
Okay, thank you. What do you see as the main challenge for Asia to access clean energy better?
The main challenge in Asia is clearly at the national policy level. Particularly the electricity rules and regulations and laws are just not providing a level playing field for renewable energy. It's really protecting the status quo. So reform of energy regulations, I think, is really the central focus. And of course, finance is important, and there's work to be done on setting up the right kinds of financial mechanisms, particularly financial mechanisms that will work for small-scale development. I think eventually large-scale renewables can be financed in the same way that large-scale conventional resources are. But if you're talking about a household-sized power system, for example, a different financial mechanism is going to be needed. But I think really the regulatory framework is foremost, because right now there would be no point in setting up the financial structures because you don't really have a market. So the two have to go hand in hand. But again, I think the legal regulatory system for electricity is at the forefront.
Okay, I see. And can ASEF play a role in it beyond the meeting that we have annually?
Well, ASEF plays a role in a number of very important ways. At one level, it's an opportunity for information sharing, and particularly for government officials in various countries to learn from each other, to learn from the private sector, to learn from some of the NGOs that have very good ideas. Secondly, of course, one of the big sort of centerpieces of ASEF is what is the Asian Development Bank, the ADB itself, doing. And there has been a lot of progress and change in ADB policy since the ASEF process began a number of years ago. So that's really going to be one of the main things that we have to challenge in the future is continue that. Come on, you guys, you're breaking up an interview.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry for this. Please continue.
You got to splice it.
Right.
So the ADB policies are really sort of central to this conference, and continued evolution in terms of the ADB supporting financial mechanisms, but also having it support the right kind of policy advice and policy change. Great progress has been made over the last 8 or 9 years, but clearly there is a way to go. I think some of the people in the final session were providing some useful sort of criticism and suggestions that we have to move it to another level.
Okay, thank you. And maybe a last question. Any suggestion for us on what specifically we can improve for next year?
One idea that I've proposed to the organizers is to consider moving it on alternate years to other countries. So have it 1 year in Manila, then the next year in Bangkok, back to Manila, then the next year in Jakarta. I think that having every other year be an external year, the World Bank does something like that. It has 2 meetings a year. One's in Washington, one is somewhere else. The UN Environment Program does that with its annual Governing Council meeting. I think it would be a way of drawing in national governments, because if you have the conference in a particular country, you're going to get very high-level representation. You're going to get business involved. You could even get the president or prime minister of the country to participate. That's what happened last week at the Inter-American Development Bank's conference in Bogota. The President of the Republic actually came and spoke at the conference, which of course then gives a signal to the whole rest of the country. So I think that high-level participation and doing that via, moving the conference every other year to a different location, I think, could be a useful complement. I mean, I recognize that, having the specialists, the practitioners involved and networking is really at the center of ASAF. But, at the end of the day, you do have to have high-level political support and visibility. So I think that those two really could be combined in this format that I've recommended.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris.
Yeah, thanks a lot.